Hello, everybody. So, I've got an announcement. I know the last time I said that I was in India, and you may recall, some of you, that back then I had Kali Ma, the Dark Mother, uh, the wild
Hello,
feminine.
everybody.
Oh, hello.
So,
Yeah,
I've got an announcement. I know the last time
there we go. So, yeah, she came in and said, close your online mystery school. This was back in January when I started my Whirling Rainbow tour. And yeah, didn't see that coming. In fact, put me into a bit of a state of shock. But I honored the calling, and I didn't run any of my usual initiation programs in 2023 as a result. Instead, I followed the guidance to just focus on showing up in person. And this has coincided with me in my midlife chapter, the life phase known as the mage. The equivalent is the magi for men. And I speak about this in my latest book, The Grail. And during this life chapter, it's akin to the season of autumn. It's when we reflect on our changing values and our changing needs, and we restructure our lives to reflect that. Now, patriarchy interprets that as a midlife crisis, but the word crisis means both danger and opportunity. So I'm choosing to see this as an opportunity. And it is time for me to acknowledge that I have outgrown my previous chapter serving as the moon woman, offering insights on how to live in alignment with the natural cycles, that this is a chapter that has run its course. And I wouldn't be embodying my teachings if I didn't acknowledge that this cycle has indeed come to an end, and that I need to be in right relationship with death and have the shaman's death embrace the ending in order to have a new rebirth, a new chapter. So part of this has been more sensitivity around the time I spend online. I'm not able to spend as much time online, or I get headaches, because as we age, we become more sensitive. And this week I turned 53. So, my sensitive, sentient being is saying, hey, you need to unplug as much as possible. And the other thing is, it's, as we age, the invitation is to come full circle, to start off as the innocent, the magical child, and then find our way back to that state of innocence where we are completely trusting spirit that speaks directly to our heart. And if we listen to the inner yearnings of our heart, that we dare to follow that. No matter if it doesn't make sense to anyone else, or if we appear mad, but that we are true to ourselves. Because if we're not true to ourselves, we can't be true to anybody. So those of you that have watched my last few videos will know that I have spoken about this coming full circle, as we look down the trajectory of 2024, which is, I feel, very much the final of the final year of the age of Pisces, which is an ending, a call to end our old karmic dances, doing the same thing with the same souls, having the same outcomes, and traumatizing each other with deeply engraved wounds. So I've been visiting all my family of origin and healing past karmic conditions in my preparation for my personal rebirth. And I didn't realize that I was coming back to Australia to do that. In fact, I thought I was coming back here to get the retreat supplies that I needed to do the Grail initiation, the return of the Holy Grail rite of passage. And I was so excited to finally reinstate that on Bridget's Isles, on the land of my ancestors. However, it seems the universe had other plans. I didn't get the number of men that I needed to even just break even. In fact, only half of what I needed to break even. There just wasn't enough interest. There wasn't the demand from the men. And after 4 years of trying to reach men and offering them the Grail, I had to concede that there just wasn't, it wasn't being embraced, kind of perhaps like Parsifal, who doesn't recognize the gift of the Grail when it's before him, when he is offered feminine wisdom that will help him to live sustainably and to heal his heart so he can find true love. So I grieved this when it became very apparent to me. In fact, there were, I think, 5 synchronistic signs that happened over the course of just 1 week, where it became very obvious to me that it was not divine will or divine timing that the Grail retreat go ahead at this time. Some of those signs where I came back to get homeopathic essence that I had made up back in 2017, percussed in a laboratory in New Zealand, homeopathic of my menses and the staghorn that had come down through druidic ceremonies in the UK, so that they had no material substance. They were purely an energetic formula, elixir. And they were nowhere in all of my stored belongings back in Australia. I've been through every box, and I said to the universe, okay, if you want this retreat to happen, I need those essences and I need enough men to break even. And that didn't happen. But also the postcards, the promotional postcards that I'd shipped to Morocco never arrived, so that the brother who was going to be facilitating the yoga and breath work, he wasn't able to give them out at his sessions, and I didn't realize that he hadn't been until this, past week, where I was told by my host in Morocco the postcards never arrived. The video series Awakening the Sacred Masculine, it was put on a different platform so that it was buffering when people tried to watch it on their phones, but I wasn't aware of the fact that people couldn't see it on their phones. And so anyway, there was just one thing after another. And even the last few places that I was traveling around England trying to gather the men, speaking on Awakening the Sacred Masculine. And I spent a week creating this live presentation. And the last 2 places didn't provide a screen and a projector so that I could actually deliver it. And I've just been informed by Birmingham Mind, Body, Spirit now that they can't provide me with a screen. So I don't know if I'm going to be doing it there. So there just isn't the support, at this time to initiate men. And that, when it hit my heart that I had to let that go, I grieved. I was driving along the highway and I sobbed for about 4 hours because it really meant so much to me. And, the men that do want to be initiated are also grieving. One brother reached out, the Rainbow Warrior program that I hoped would be a precursor to that, and he had cried for an hour that it wasn't going ahead. So, I'm deeply touched by the men that did step up and say, yes, it's time, but unfortunately there just wasn't enough. So maybe at some point in the future there will be enough interest, enough energy, enough men ready to embrace that opportunity, but at this time not. So that's that. I want to share with you the new chapter that has been made apparent to me this eclipse season. And I'm very excited about it. And receiving this new calling helped me to immediately accept, okay, well, it's not time for the Grail. It's not time for initiating men, because this is what's being asked of me now. And I'm very excited to share it with you. So, just a bit of context. My birthday was the 5th of November, 1970. And in numerological terms, that adds up to a 24. So my life path is number 24. On the Kabbalistic tree, that is the path of death, the tarot card lesson of death. And the past year, I've been in a death year. So when I was in England over the summer, particularly in Lewis, I kept seeing the word Phoenix everywhere. And having 5 planets in Scorpio, Phoenix is often synonymous with Scorpio. So I, took it as a sign that I was, being asked to undergo some sort of a death and rebirth. And I was planning a Phoenix rising ceremony, not realizing that this was going to be my own Phoenix rising ceremony. And, the Phoenix, it's born out of intensity, out of combustion, out of fire, i.e. Kundalini. And for those of you that have followed me for years, you'll know that I had a Kundalini awakening when I was 27, living off the grid in the Otway Ranges. And ever since then, dedicated my life to awakening the Kundalini in as many people as possible, starting with women. I'm noticing it's now 111, very symbolic. 111 being about new beginnings. And so when I returned to Australia, I wasn't just, in a death year, in a death phase. So the mage phase, midlife, between the mother and the crone, is akin to the season of autumn. It's a time of letting go, okay, of acknowledging that our energy is waning. We're becoming like the last quarter moon. And that we need to be discerning about what we have the energy for and let go of what we don't. So since returning to Australia, I have been letting go of all my earthly possessions. I've given them away. I've sold them. And this has been part of, a shamanic death, another letting go of my previous identity and what I associated with personal security. Especially my car. I actually cried when I sold that to one of my students, because when I'd been homeless with my daughter, having that car was the only sort of nomadic home that we had. So that felt really vulnerable to release that. And for my birthday this year, the 2 days leading up to it, I was on my menses. So, each year is a death before our solar return, our rebirth, our birthday. And I visited with my mother and father, who I hadn't seen in many years, not because I hadn't wanted to, but for various reasons. And my father asked me to get all my end-of-life affairs in order, because I was being called to travel indefinitely and just be of service wherever spirit called me. He was concerned that anything could happen to me, and that having done death estates before, knowing how hard it is to track everything if it's not organized, he asked me if I'd do that for him. And of course, I agreed, but I recognized it to be an initiation for me to take the active steps of preparing for my death. And this had coincided with going to a sound healing where I received the message that we would be dropping our physical robes, that we would be becoming light and color. So who knows? You know, nobody can call exactly how the shift is going to play out and the transition into the new earth will look. Maybe it will involve a physical death of the lower self or not. But either way, I'm feeling far more accepting and trusting of whatever great mystery has in store for me and for us. So before I returned to Australia, I attended a chanting retreat with fellow Aussie Kevin James, whose music I have loved for years. He's a beautiful soul. And this was, in fact, the third chanting retreat that I have been to within a year, which indicated, you know, this is where my heart is calling me to serve as the sacred vessel, the divine instrument, which in the tantric tradition is called the yantra. And for those of you who have done my Inner Goddess retreat or Inner Goddess online course, or read my Inner Goddess book, or done the equivalent Rainbow Warrior initiation course for men, will know that as part of that, I ask you to create a yantra, which is our sacred art. So the 7 mandalas or some sort of act of beauty or art piece to clear the energies in each of the chakras so that the kundalini can flow freely up the spine, clearing the channel known as Sushumna, the central channel, which is the path of white tantra, where we learn to balance feminine, masculine within, so we can be a clear conduit, a rainbow bridge to receive guidance, callings from spirit to use us as an instrument to create heaven on earth. So while I was at this retreat, I was the only one there who didn't play an instrument. In fact, it was meant to be a prerequisite for attending, because it wasn't just to go and sing chants, but to learn how to facilitate chanting events. And I don't play an instrument despite attempts to learn, because as a child, I was forced to learn piano under duress and have trauma due to being badly beaten, publicly humiliated on stage. And so, you know, my subconscious had avoided learning an instrument. And during this, but I had trained my voice classically. In fact, from the age of 12, I started studying with an ex-opera teacher, opera singer, and she said to me if I was to study with her, I had to do an hour's singing practice every day. So I would start my day with a practice, not realizing it was also a sacred practice. By singing the scales, I was in fact singing the yantra, the chakras, and toning this instrument. So I continued that practice until the age of 24. And then in 26, when at the age of 26, I left performing. And part of that was because of the stage fright that I just couldn't overcome when it came to singing in public. And I remember I used to go to those big cattle call auditions for musicals, because when I was a young child, my dream was to sing on Broadway. And for Christmas, I would get a hardcover book of musicals, you know, the big MGM musicals, right through to the rock operas. And in fact, my favorite musical of all time is Jesus Christ Superstar. And so I didn't realize that I would get to fulfill that dream. It just wasn't going to be in a linear path, but in a very unexpected and curvy spiral serpentine path. So what kept coming was this image of an album cover. And it was the image of the Sri Yantra, which is the sound of the universe. In other words, when we chant Om, the sound of the divine, eternal presence. Iron filings arrange themselves into the sacred symbol that is the yantra. This is called cymatics. And this was the album cover, but as a hologram, as a holographic image refracting rainbow light. And I recognized that I was being asked to serve now through pure vibration, through opening myself to be a living grail, a living vessel. Whenever I chant, I always ask Spirit to sing through me to heal myself and the world. So this is what I'm being asked to do now, knowing that nothing gives me greater joy than singing, chanting, opening my devotional heart. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to create this album. I don't know how, in GarageBand, working with session musos remotely, recording tracks, and just ask Spirit to help me to channel it. So I came back to Australia thinking, all right, that's my new chapter. Well, the universe wasn't done. I received an image during the dark moon eclipse. I was in circle with my sisters on the Gold Coast in Australia. These are women that I'd sat with for 7 months over 7 new moons when I was living in Byron Bay in Australia. And I was shown this image of me on stage, naked, but with a huge projection of butterfly wings behind me, like La Mariposa, the Native American embodiment of the true elder woman who has attained a level of self-acceptance that affords her the ability to be completely transparent, completely naked, as in Eden, with her heart, in fact, all of the facets of herself, having completed her personal metamorphosis from ego to being soul dominant. And as I was shown this image in a channeled state, I was crying and laughing hysterically at the same time, saying, no, Spirit, no, you can't be asking this of me. My body, I'm in midlife. This is not a body I want to be putting out there publicly naked, And my sisters were saying, what are you seeing? What are you being shown? And I shared them, and they really felt for me. But people often say to me, oh, you're so courageous following these callings that you get. But to be perfectly honest, I'm more afraid of ignoring a calling, because my feeling is that we come here with a sacred mission, a sacred purpose. And while I had glimpses of that my whole life, when my Kundalini awakened at the age of 26, I received a very clear calling. And my feeling is if we don't follow our calling, we are actually at risk of freak accidents, of illness, which is our soul saying, what are you doing? Abort mission. If you're not fulfilling your mission, you're wasting the gift of life. So, of course, I have to follow wherever my heart compels me to go. So it's been very wistful being back here in Australia, because I'm so beloved by friends whose roots go very deep with me, decades and decades of friendship, people who I know love me, warts and all, not because I'm the moon woman, but because we've shared milestones and they've seen me at my best and my worst, and I know they love me unconditionally, and it grieves my heart to be called away from them to the other side of the world, but I know that that's the calling. So that makes me feel teary even acknowledging it. So then the next morning, after this vision was given to me in circle, during the time of the exact eclipse, I'm awoken before dawn with this visceral experience of a holographic rainbow serpent moving through me, taking me into a very erotically charged, multi-orgasmic state. And I'm being shown visions of what it is that spirit is asking me to do. And it's to return to the stage, not in the way I was in my maidenhood. So the first 26 years of my life, I was a performer. And then at the age of 26, I left. I used to experience such intense nerves and stage fright waiting around in those big cattle call auditions for big budget musicals that by the time I got to sing, I would shake, and so would my voice like a leaf, and my throat would close over and I couldn't sing. And I remember once this lovely, compassionate director, I got through to the final few women for a lead role in a big musical, and he could hear that I had a voice, but he also could hear that the nerves were sabotaging me. And he so wanted to make me feel safe enough that I could let my voice out, but alas, I couldn't. And I had to then concede that it was pointless to continue, trying. So I fled to the hills, but I took with me the double gospel album of Aretha Franklin, and I would have happy hour with the birds where, because no one could hear me in the forest, in the bush, I would sing with the birds at dusk. And because it was devotional prayer, but sung, that helped to free my voice. And then after that, I did sing in an a cappella choir with my friends called the Funky Angels. And because I was surrounded by my friends, I felt safe to let my voice out. But anyway, I received that I have to go back to the stage, but this time it's as a shaman. So the first 26 years of my life, I was a performer, but a lot of that was, as much as I love to perform, it was me trying to be seen and heard and understood, validated, because my family of origin hadn't been able to. So it was coming from the wound of Aphrodite, needing the love of an audience. The next 26 years, I served as a mystic. So my ego was humbled. I wasn't allowed on a stage. I had to show up in service. And this is because of my lunar nodal axis. I have South Node in Leo. So in my most recent life, I was a performer. And I brought those gifts in with me this lifetime. But my North Node is in Aquarius. So my compass, my due north, is to help midwife usher in the Aquarian age through being of service. But with our nodal axis, we are meant to combine the gifts of our past lives, so for me as a performer, with our North Node lesson. So for me, ushering in the Aquarian age, but as a shaman, as a sacred performer doing ritual theatre, because theatre as we know it today was born out of ritual. Back in the ancient world, people would attend the Eleusinian mysteries, ritual theatre. So it was participatory. And then this was split off to form the Abrahamic three faiths of Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. And it became that people would go and just watch the ceremonies performed by clergy, and we would be passive participants. And in doing so, we lost the power of the rites of the ceremonies that formerly had initiated our psyche to mature psychologically and emotionally. So reclaiming ceremony so that it's not just theatre for entertainment or the theatre of the church, which amasses often power for the hierarchical institution of the church, but rather ceremony for the people. So what I'm being asked to create is a stage show called Yantra. I think it's a one-woman show. It's coming to me in pieces, so it's not yet crystalline, but I'm being shown that the place to premiere it is the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. So I'm going to go and check out possible venues if anyone knows of suitable venues. And thank you. One of you did respond to my call out for that. So I'm going to check that venue possibility out. I'm also looking for volunteers to be ushers or stage hands, because a theatrical production can cost, a ridiculous amount of money. And yeah, I'm doing this on a shoestring, so I welcome support. I'm also being shown psychedelic video. So this will be a multimedia transmission where the audience is coming in to be initiated through the seven gates. So a sort of a dance of the seven veils, or a journey up the stairway to heaven, Jacob's ladder. And I'm seeing psychedelic visions of what it is that I receive in trance states, because so far the show is revealing itself to me when I'm in ecstatic trance states, whether that's through a multi-orgasmic state, or through dancing, through chanting, through breath work, on the understanding that we are the medicine. We don't need plant medicines, that all we need to do is open our seven gates, and we activate the multi-dimensional awareness of our multi-faceted diamond blueprint soul. And so, I had an experience on the dance floor during the full moon eclipse where I was taken through not just my death, but the decomposition of my body, and animals came to feed on me. And it was a transcendent experience where I was at one with them in the spirit world. And I'm wanting to share that as a psychedelic video piece in the show. So if any of you are psychedelic artists, animators, I would love to hear from you with samples of your work. So I also want to acknowledge that for me, standing on a stage singing solo is possibly my greatest fear. Dying on stage, public humiliation. And so it was very symbolic that on my birthday this year, November 5, the universe invited me to stand on a stage and do exactly that. I went to a mini festival, a very safe crowd that had an open stage every night. And they literally called for me to come up. And I wasn't there the first night, and then again on the second night. And I was eclipsed by stage fright. I stood there and I felt my heart and my throat close over, and I started to cry. I couldn't breathe. And fortunately, I was able to invite two of my oldest friends up to come and hold my hands so that I could move through my fear and transmute the fear into love, which I did, and I completed the song. So this journey is going to be inspired by how we are all called to transmute our fears at the seven gates into love in our preparation for the shift into the Aquarian age, when Pluto moves into Aquarius starting in 2024. So I I would love to stay in contact with you, even though I will be closing my membership. Those of you that are, part of my subscriber community, thank you so much for your support, particularly those of you that are paid to help me to, sustain the outgoings of wages and overheads. I will be sending out an email so you'll understand how that closure will come about. But I ask that you still keep in touch, okay, both by my social media platforms and my email list. If you change your email address, please update me so that you'll be the first to know when tickets go on sale for my online, for my in-person show, Yantra. I'm also looking for a venue for a promoter for my show. If any of you have contacts, I'm looking for a sponsor in the UK so that I can be approved for the visa to do a month run in Edinburgh. And and I would happily welcome investors as well. So if any and all of that calls to your heart, or if anyone intuitively pops in, I welcome your support in midwifing me into this new chapter, which I'm so excited to share with you as I prepare to come full circle. And in my heart of hearts, I do feel that the Grail will happen, and that this is part of my preparation to be ready to embody the holy couple and to initiate men with the support of my beloved. So thank you so much for witnessing my journey. Thank you for understanding my need to shed my serpentine skin as a goddess of Kundalini and to, embrace this next chapter. Thank you for watching, and blessings.